Whoa, welcome to the show, everybody. So, if you're watching this post broadcast version, please give me about 30 seconds while people log on. As typical, I did not pre announce this broadcast, so I like to give people a few minutes to get on. Yeah. So what I'm going to do today, I want to look over the Python documentation to help you guys understand how after you've learned the basics of Python, you can start referring to the docs. And it applies not just to Python, just about any technology, really. That's the key. So I'm just waiting for people to show up, and then we're going to get into it. So, hey guys, how are you? Orlando, Hamza, Asif. Yeah. I'm just waiting for people to show up. Post comments in the comments, please, so I know what's going on. All right, cool. I'm trying for you guys. I'm trying to be a little bit more consistent in terms of my timing. I think 2 o'clock in the afternoon right now is a good time to do live streams like this, so we can people in the east and in the west can take advantage of this because there's something about a live presentation. I think it's kind of cool. Hello from Serbia. All right. Hey, friends. Hey. Yeah, so we're like a community here, a growing community here. I think after the live broadcast, we get, I don't know, between 3,000 to 5,000 people who watch these live videos. I think it's going to increase in time, especially if I start setting a set time and let people know about it. I think it's going to increase. There's something about this live presentation that's kind of cool. So, how many people we have on now? Yeah, 33. So it's still still building up. It will come quickly. All right, let's see what we got here. Hey there. My son and I are taking your web dev course in Lebanon. All right, Rudy Adam. I'm happy to hear that. Thanks for letting people know, by the way. It's 8 p.m. where you are. So I guess you are in Europe. Let me know if you're in Europe. I'm assuming that. Hello from England. How do I learn coding? Well, you're at the right live place to learn coding. You get ancient nerd wisdom here, and then take my StudioWeb courses, and you will be fine and dandy with that, guaranteed. Yeah, let me jump in. Yeah, so I'm just waiting for people to show up, and then we'll get into it. All right, so we're good. So let's get back to the stream. All right, cool. All right. I'll answer a few questions while we wait for enough people to show up. When we get about 80 to 100 people, I will get into the main subject of the day, although it's going to be a short one because I rushed back from grocery shopping to do the live show. I'm trying to do the 2 p.m. So is Python good for freelance? It's pretty good for freelance. Depends on where you are in the world. The best for freelance, I believe, is full stack with PHP, maybe WordPress, that kind of stuff. Yeah, Southeast. Okay, yeah. So I figured. Yeah, let's see. How to master computer science fundamentals. Which are some books you would suggest? Well, I'm of course self-motivated. I think my StudioWeb course is going to teach you very well the fundamentals of programming, the internet, the web, basic principles of software development, best coding practices. And then from there, I would get a book by Martin Fowler. It's, what's it called again? It is called Refactoring. You know what? I'm going to go get the book so I can show it to you guys. Give me a minute. I'll be back in 2 seconds. There we go. Sorry about that. So if you've done the basics of software development, the fundamentals, you have and you're comfortable writing code, the next step is to do this book. This is called Refactoring by, there we go. The link is will be in the description below. If you go to one of my older videos to see Refactoring by Martin Fowler. This is one of the most important books out there. It teaches you the key skill of refactoring, which is basically making your code better. And it's written for Java, but applies to any language, and you're going to learn best coding practices. So I really, really, once you've done the basics and you know your way around, you want to take your coding level to a new level. Forget about tutorials on this or that. Do this book, and you're going to be way ahead. If you're a total beginner to web design and development and you want to get going, I can recommend this book because it's my book on web design. Yes, again, the link is below, will be below. This is for total beginners. I wrote this book to be evergreen. It's a few years old, but it's still 100% relevant. And yeah, so if you like lots of graphs and pictures, it's not obviously required to learn the stuff, especially if you do StudioWeb. But if you like to read and you're looking for a book, that's that book. Okay, so there are my book recommendations. All right, let's see. Sir, PyCharm versus VS Code. For Python, what do you suggest? You know, I haven't compared the two. I hear a very good thing about Visual Studio Code, which is Microsoft, but PyCharm from JetBrains, they produce really, really good code editors and IDEs, you know. How would you practice HTML and CSS before going on to learn JavaScript? Well, you write code, you build pages. Most of the JavaScript you'll be doing will be working with the browser, not all. If you go into Node and like back-end JavaScript is a different thing, but most of the JavaScript is front-end, meaning you're writing code that works in the browser, which means you're going to be manipulating with your JavaScript, you're going to be manipulating HTML and CSS, working with something called the DOM, D-O-M, the Document Object Model. My StudioWeb courses teaches you all that. I highly recommend you go there. Of course, I'm very self-motivated in all this. You want to check it out, check out my what package course here. Take out my complete web developer course. That will give you everything you need to know, and bing, bang, boom, you'll be up and running in no time. All right, let's go back. How are we doing for people? We're at 80 people, so I'm about to jump into the subject. It's going to be a short subject. This broadcast is going to be more Q&A than anything else. And yeah, we'll take it from there. Thank you so much. I will go through these books definitely. Yeah, well, if you already know how to code, this is the book. If you don't know how to code at all, then this is the book, my book. I wrote this book to basically give people the foundation. Although if you do my StudioWeb courses, you don't need that book. That book is supplemental at best. Oh, look at that. That's cool. CodePad now has support for Flutter. I will just leave this here. That's very cool. As people know, CodePen is, Flutter is something I identified a little while back. I thought it's something interesting to consider. Can you teach how to debug in PyCharm if your program is meant to run in the terminal using parse arguments? I would have to look into that, and I don't think I'd see anything. You won't see anything anytime from me soon because besides other things, within 30 days, I am moving. So moving house is going to be it's going to be a lot of work. Hey, Colleen, how you doing? Let's see. Vue.js plus Java SQL, good stack. Yeah, very good stack. If you're going to do Java, though, it's going to be for larger projects because Java is a little bit slow to develop in. If you watched my video yesterday, the code race video, I'll give you an idea what I mean. Is it easy to immigrate to Canada as a software engineer with no degree? It's harder because they look at degree is a quality that they look for, but you might want to reach out to the Canadian consulate or businesses in Canada. Make sure you have a good portfolio site, and that will help a lot too. Hey, Stefan from India. Should we use plain CSS or Material UI for styling React components? Which one is better? Whoa, within the context of React, I could not say. Um, you would have to ask the React community, see how React plays with Material UI. Yeah, that's all I can offer there. Servet, why? Starting programming games with Unity was a bad idea. Who had just basic knowledge of coding? Why not? Whatever type of coding floats your boat, whatever type of coding makes you want to write code, then do it, because the key is just writing code. Now, if you learn how to code with C# and Unity, and you end up doing Java and Spring, or you ended up doing PHP Laravel or Python and Django, it doesn't matter. You'll be able to pivot. The hardest part about learning how to program is just learning the basics. Once you get past the basics, it all starts to get easier. How do you build reputation as a software developer? That is a good question. I'm going to cover that, I think, in my 7 laws of code, which I've written out, but I haven't recorded the videos yet because I want to increase the production value. So how do you build reputation as a software developer? You build real things. You build real things. You work with real clients and real projects. Not about doing a bunch of tutorials off of YouTube or any other platform. It's about building real things. That's why, though in my WebStack course, I'm going to shamelessly self-promote again. Though in my WebStack course, I do have projects, I recommend that after you do the foundation training, you just jump right into maybe 1 or 2 little projects, like a CRUD project and maybe the form validation. Then just go out there and do the real thing in terms of freelancing. Even people will go to an expensive boot camp, spend 5, 10, 15, 20 grand for a boot camp. And one of the things that they keep mentioning, I keep hearing, oh yeah, but they'll give me a job placement, they'll get me a stage. That's why they want to pay all this money. But you don't need to pay all that money to get a stage, to get a freelance gig, which I mapped this out in my freelance course. But in a nutshell, once you have your basics up there, you put up a nice looking site. And then what you do is you reach out to local business, talk to friends. If you have to, just go Google Maps and look for independent coffee shops or independent butcher or something and find out if they have a site. And if they have an old crappy site, call them up, say, listen, I'm building up a portfolio. I'm willing to do some work for you for free. And then run it as I teach in my freelance course, step by step, like a real job, because it's important that you develop those skills. And then once you've done that once or twice, little jobs take 1 week, take 2 weeks, whatever. It's part of your training. It's kind of the icing on the cake. It will really tie things together. And as people have stated in the comments on their videos and in live, you'll learn so much more quickly by doing real code, writing real code for real projects, as opposed to getting caught in tutorial hell. And other the biggest tutorial makers out there, some of them, like Traversy Media, he's mentioned that. He watches my videos on occasion. He said that himself. He's a big tutorial maker. You don't want to get caught in the tutorials. Tutorials are something that you use if you want to get on board into a technology real quick. So let's say you know your web stack well, you've done StudioWeb, etc. You've done a couple freelance gigs, whatever it be, WordPress or simple shopping cart implementation. All of a sudden, somebody says, I want you to build something with React. So there you could either go to the docs, which a lot of times would be good enough, or you could just, pick up one of those inexpensive React intro courses, or do one on YouTube, and away you go. You don't have to pre-learn it. You learn it as the jobs come up. All right, so we're at 112. So speaking now, I was just talking about documentation. I just want to bring up something here. So let's go to, can you guys see this? So we're going to go to python.org here. So python.org, I want to show you guys what I mean about documentation, if you can see this. So this is if you don't know, this is you look at the URL at the top. This is the official Python website, python.org. And in python.org, you have all your documentation, right? You have all the documentation. You just go to docs, and you can see everything that is there. And once you know your way around the basics of Python, you can start jumping into things. And then they'll give you samples of code. They'll tell you what's new. You got tutorials. You can walk in. It's like it's all there for you. You see what I mean? So once you know your basics, then this becomes an easy thing to go through. And so it's again, not much to say about this except to say that it's all here for you. You can choose your version of Python 3.6, see what's new there, and it's all there for you to learn. You don't need somebody like me to walk you through this. The hardest part about learning how to code is just the basics. Once you got your basics done, you're ready to go. So I just wanted to point that out. That's pretty much it. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to answer a few more questions. Well, we're at 15 minutes. For an extra 10, 15 minutes. It's going to be a short broadcast today because I got a bunch of work I got to take care of. All right. So any questions off the top of your head? What should I understand in cloud developments and your courses? Are you asking me? I'm not sure what you're asking me there. I think you're asking me if I'm teaching about cloud, using the cloud in terms of development. I don't get into that. But again, once you do the courses, it'll be easy for you to pick up on that because cloud hosting and virtual private servers, although the basics are the same, it's very different. If you're using DigitalOcean, you're going to have a very different experience when using AWS, which is a very different experience from, I use something called Funio as one of my providers. So it's just the basics you got to get into. Here we go. How do you come up with app ideas? Become a domain expert, and then you will discover app ideas as you become more knowledgeable about the domain. I should cover this in my other channel, which I just posted a video there, by the way, my business channel, link below. What do I mean by domain? It's a domain of knowledge, meaning, in the restaurant business, that would be one domain. Coffee shop business, another domain. Butchers, another domain. Bicycle shops, another domain. Come up with app ideas. You have to figure out, you have to find a problem that has to be solved. At the end of the day, all we're doing when writing software is we're solving problems. Is C a good language to start programming in? It's not bad. It's not bad. It's a type of programming. When you do C, C++ programming, it's very different than if you're doing like Python or Java or C# programming. It's a different beast. I would actually pick a different language because things like Python, JavaScript, PHP is more approachable. Especially Python, JavaScript could be very visual, could be entertaining, but that really depends on what it is you want to do. All right, what do we got here? Hello, Stefan. I want to build computer science resume in C++ in order to make video games, but I don't know where to start. I don't have experience to work on projects with other people. Yeah, video games is a different thing because video games is, you won't find small businesses looking to do video game work. What I would do is I would start contacting video game companies and telling them where you are at, and they will tell you with a little prodding what they need for you to know before they would hire you. I would take a look at it that way. I'm not a video game guy. I have my friend of mine. He's a top level guy in the video game industry, but there's a wide range of skills, and they vary depending on the company and what platforms they're developing for. Solving problems connects with entrepreneurship as well, so app ideas might go in that direction easily. Exactly, Andre. I agree 122%. Okay. I can't decide either C++ or Python as a beginner. Which one should I start with? I would definitely start with Python. There's no question. Why? Because C++, especially when you're a beginner, it can be very archaic for a lot of people. There's a lot of little details you have to take care of. With C++, and that's one of the reasons why it runs so fast, because you got to take care of these things manually. But with Python, it solves problems. Okay, here we go. Steph, you said build real projects. As a starter, we will make mistakes. Yes. Won't clients be unhappy with their buggy products? Well, that's why you do the first couple of, good question. That's why you do the first couple of jobs for free, and you let them know. And you do simple things. You don't say, I'm going to build you Facebook. But they may say, can you implement a shopping cart in my Wix site? Or can you implement Shopify? Or can you just put in a shopping cart as an example? Or can you fix up my WordPress template? Or can you change the contact form in my website? That kind of stuff. Or my site is not responsive. Can you make it responsive? So you start off with simple things. Again, I'm not trying to push it, but in my freelance course, I map out the process of the whole project management. Like the freelance course, by the way, is as much, some people have said, it's as much a small project management process or methodology as it is a course in freelancing, which goes hand in hand, because one of the big things that makes a project successful is managing the scope of the project, managing your clients so that they have expectations that are aligned with your expectation in terms of where the project is going, where it's going to end up. Very important. Stefan, how to make good software development content. First, you got to be able to speak well, and that was my weakness. You have to know what you're doing, I would say. The more you know, the reason I can do these live streams and answer all these questions, because I've been doing this for 169 years. Can I create a successful web app, Slack or Uber, like using Java, SQL, Vue, JS Stack? Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure you'd want to create a Slack or Uber unless you have an idea how to make your version of Slack or Uber much better. Can't be 10% better, has to be much better. Okay, I'll answer this guy's question because he's so old. Where is it? Hi, I'm 15 years old and learning HTML and CSS, and CSS is kind of hard. It's not kind of hard. CSS is very confusing. And I'm feeling demotivated at sometimes. What should I do? And do you have any advices for me as a new guy to this field? You're 15 years old. Email me and I will send you my CSS course for free since you're 15 years old. And don't let CSS bring you down. CSS can be harder to learn than JavaScript or Java. And why is because I think that CSS, that's what she said. I think that CSS was not designed for user interface layout creation. That's the big problem. CSS was designed to style documents. It's a long story about how HTML was conceived of, how it was built, how it was initially thought of. So yeah, you're not the only one. Trust me, CSS can be a beast, but take my course, just send me an email, just note that, mention that you're on this chat and who you are and your age, and I'll set you up with that on the StudioWeb. Hello, Steph. What level of React should I go before applying for jobs because I never ending content? Well, that's it. Whether it be React or Python or JavaScript or whatever, PHP, it's never ending. It's never ending. It's never ending. You can never learn it all. What I say is you master your fundamentals so you're comfortable. A good indicator is my StudioWeb content. But if you're comfortable, let's say in the web stack, with your HTML5, your CSS3, your JavaScript, and you're comfortable building a responsive website, then you're ready to go with your first gigs. With React, again, if you can do a typical basic thing with React where your code is clean and well-documented, etc., and you're comfortable, like, okay, I can implement kind of with a baseline type of project, then you're ready to go. Nobody knows everything, and nobody comes into it a superstar. You become a superstar by real-world work, okay? See, there is consensus. Yes, CSS is very confusing. Again, I simplify quite a bit in my in StudioWeb and in my book as well. Although I think the StudioWeb is better because it's interactive and you got instant help. What's up with the spam today? I'm spamming everything today. I'm spamming this guy's book too because I don't know him, but spamming a little bit. I admit it. Is web development the only choice for freelancing? No, you can do all kinds of different things for freelancing. I think web development in that whole space is probably the easiest. Web development, WordPress development, maybe social media implementations. Um, yeah, I think those are probably the most common. No, I know those are the most common. So, Andrea, if you're into development at your age, consider perseverance on a long term. Don't stop no matter what. I wish I was 15 again. Everyone would wish to be 15 again. Andrea is 1000% correct with that. I would give away everything I had to be 15 again. You're so lucky. I bet you Bill Gates would give away all his money to be 15 again. So you're in a fantastic place. Don't worry, take your time. You'll get there. Just be consistent. A little every day is very helpful. Hey, Steph, what do you do? What do I do about self-doubting programming? Just more experience, more experience. Just build more things, just build more things and just power through it. It will go away as you write more and more code. So don't worry about that. Everybody at some point or another feels that, so I wouldn't be too concerned. Hi, I'm learning JavaScript, Vanilla.js. I feel dumb. Is this normal? Maybe I'm not just smart enough. No, you're smart enough. Just one thing, and again, I'm not going to bash. There's a lot of good material out there, but there's also a lot of bad material out there. A lot of bad courses, a lot of bad stuff by nerds who may know what they're doing in terms of writing code, but they don't know how to teach. Teaching is a skill, right? So first of all, second of all, when you're learning, especially if you're a designer type, when you're learning how to code, it's weird because you have to think in a totally different way. It's kind of like it's backwards thinking in a sense. So just keep writing code. You'll be fascinated how much writing the actual code, even if you don't understand the code, how much writing it every day will help you with comprehension. It's really quite fascinating. One day you'll be like, I don't understand this. And then 2 days later, after you've written a bunch of code, you go, oh, now I understand exactly what was going on. It's really like that. Same thing with debugging, by the way. As Martin Fowler taught me 20 years ago, most of your work, a lot of your work as a programmer, if not most of your time, is going to be spent debugging. And when you see in debugging, it works much in the same way. I'll tell you a story. It's like I remember on one of my apps I was working on for like a day, I couldn't figure out what the bug was. I just couldn't find it. So I just stepped away and did something else. And then the next morning I wake up, I sit down at the computer and I right away, oh, that's what it is. So behind the scenes, my brain was working on solving the problem, I guess. So, hi, Stefan, I bought your book. It is Blondie Friendly, ha, 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 from Bournemouth, England. All right, Artur, I'm glad it was friendly enough for you. How should I send you an email? I can't find it anywhere in your channel. Just send it to, I don't know if I should tell it. Okay, it's Stefan, Stefan, at StudioWeb.com. Send it there. Do you make a distinction between coding and programming? Yeah, there is a distinction. Coding is a broader topic. You can code in languages that are not programming languages. You can code in HTML5, that's a structural language. You can code in CSS, it's a styling language. You can code in SQL, it is a database querying language. Whereas you can also code in Ruby, which you shouldn't do, or you can code in Python or Java or JavaScript or PHP or C++ or C# or Perl. Those are all programming languages. So coding is just a broader term that encompasses both programming languages and other computer languages that are not programming languages. Stefan Mischuk, is being 50-year-old too old for the dev industry? No, because I have friends who are more than 50 and they're still quite active. And one of my friends just won some sort of award at his place of work for being one of the top developers at 50. He's he's older than me. He's like 53, 54. Well, I mean, he's younger than me. He's 53, 54. Hi, Stefan. What is your opinion on the importance of learning low-level assembly programming and learning more about hardware architecture like faux adders, memory cells, registers, buses? Unless you're getting into that kind of very specialized coding, it's not important. If you're doing web dev, you're doing game dev, you're doing It's not important. It's a specialized type of development. Most development is business level development, which means the web stack, which means languages like JavaScript and C# and Java and PHP and Python, that kind of stuff. Eddie, what's the future of programming given it can be easily outsourced in countries with cheap labor? The programming future is huge. I think that COVID cough coming, hold on. Yeah, the future is great because, especially with COVID, there's going to be a ton more move to online and distance work, distance education. There's just not enough coders. Like I haven't looked at data recently, but all the projections are showing that there's this many more coders coming online, but the jobs are just increasing faster. So I wouldn't be too concerned about it for the next 10, 15 years or so. How do you think coronavirus will affect hiring? It will create a boom once things are past. And I think tech and distance type of stuff, as I just answered, are going to be important. So I think a good thing's coming. I'm very optimistic after we get through this and they figure out how to solve this problem. Once they get past it, then things will be quite nice. And I think there's going to be good changes structurally in terms of how we think about work and travel and so forth. Is it still worth to be an apps developer these days, especially in freelancing? I don't know what the I'm assuming you're talking about mobile app development. I bet you there's a lot of work for freelance mobile app developers. I think there is. So I wouldn't be so concerned about that. Again, if you learn how to do mobile app development and you find there's no work there, for you to pivot to web is going to be like trivial, When do you usually have lives? When do you usually have lives? You're going to have to, Cheyenne, you're going to have to expand upon that. Justice, a request. World DJ, how to not get comfortable with what you only know in software engineering. How to not get comfortable. That's it. It's driven by market, I suppose, driven by money. It's kind of cool to be mindful of where the market is going. But I think, like I said, it's really stabilized now. It's not changing nearly as quickly as it used to in the past. Yeah, I just let the job market dictate that for you. That's my suggestion. All right, how are we doing? 32 minutes. It passes quick, eh? Is your business, StudioWeb, a corporation or a sole owner? Corporation, when you hit a certain level with the business, you have to incorporate for tax reasons and liability reasons, et cetera, et cetera. Hi, Stefan. Good to see you again. Do you do jiu-jitsu? No. I've done a lot of grappling, did judo for a few years. I did freestyle wrestling for a while. I trained in a MMA gym for years, and there's a lot of jiu-jitsu guys. I trained in an MMA gym called Gamma. And at the time, Georges St. Pierre trained in that gym. And yeah, I got to spar him a couple of times in boxing, not wrestling. My ground game is okay. My takedown game is not bad. My submission game is not that good. But yeah, I was more of a striker type. I just did boxing. In the MMA gym, I wasn't an MMA guy. I did the boxing there. That was my thing. With so many applications leaning towards the web, are local applications on the customer machine going away? I think so. I think if you look at Microsoft is the king there. And you see they're all in terms of web dev, right? And all their tools and so forth. The Great Anonymous. I finally got Stef in action. There you go. Is it better to specialize in something or be good at a bunch? If you are freelancing, you want to be good at a bunch. If you want to get a job, you might be better off specializing. Have you started it as a sole owner? I started my first company as a sole owner. That was like 800 years ago. And I had a partnership. It was a a technical partnership. Now in Canada, I would never recommend you do that. If you're going to partner with somebody in a business way, then you want to go incorporation for a whole bunch of legal reasons and protection reasons. I won't get into that now. Maybe I'll do that on my other channel, which is business oriented. When is the time to pass from sole proprietorship to form a corporation LLC? It has to do with the tax liabilities in your country. So depending on, there are thresholds that you hit in terms of volume, in terms of sales. And in Canada, for example, the corporate tax rate is quite low. It's, I think it's like 18.75% or 20%. They've just changed it recently. Whereas that's the cap, corporate tax rate. But the personal tax rate could be like 60, 70% over, I think, 150 grand. So it just in terms of taxes, there's a point where it makes more sense to be incorporated just to save on the tax burden. Also, you have to take, why wouldn't you incorporate right away? Because there is also an extra cost to doing your accounting as an incorporation. It's much more expensive, much more expensive. It costs me a lot of money, well, a lot of money, 10 grand it cost me to do my books, for the business. So keep that in mind. Whereas personal, you can do it for like $50, right? So it depends how much you're making. 800 years ago, that's a long time. Well, depends if you're young or not. Front end, back end, any advice on orientation choice? I think back end is easier to get jobs, unless maybe you're doing React. If you want to freelance, full stack, right? And also just try it out because it's a different type of coding. In some ways, some people would argue that backend is easier or less, what's the word I'm looking for? Not problematic, but less frustrating. Backend is less frustrating. Why? Because when you're doing front-end programming, you have to account for different browsers, and there may be some issues there, although they've tied that up. They tied up those loose ends pretty good. Yeah, okay, I'd say. Hey, Stef, I'm 16 trying to learn Python and HTML. Do you have a course on that? I do. I do get demoted pretty soon because there aren't many great tutorials out there, especially for HTML, CSS. Yeah, check out my courses on that. Let's see. 16 Olsen says, how's life? Life is not bad. I can't complain, Summer is about to hit. And can you please increase the mic input? That's true, I switch mics and I turn down mic. Is it low for everybody? What can I do with that? Hold on a second. No, let me increase my mic input for a second. Hold on. All right, I increased the mic input. Is it louder for you guys, or is it? Let me know if it's louder for you guys. Can you play a drum combo, please? Maybe one day I'll do that. You can find one on Instagram. Let me know if it's louder or not, if it's significant. Sounds fine. It's okay to me. How's Canada life generally? Canada is good. Canada is kind of like a blend between the United States and Europe, in the sense that we're a little bit more to the right of Europe, but far to the left of the US. In terms of laws and so forth, we have a good social safety net up here relative to the US. We have the healthcare and everything. And nobody's, most people are fine. That's good. So it's louder. But it's also like when I was in Europe, I remember years ago to go to my brother's wedding, I was in the UK and I was talking to some small business owners. And I was surprised at how much red tape he had to deal with to do simple business, which is, it's counterproductive for business. It's much easier to start up a business here relative to what I saw in the UK at the time. I don't know if it's changed or not. I think it's easier for countries to make business possible, the better off everybody is, within reason. I always get stuck when I try program. Give us some advices, please. Yeah. Get a good course, take your time, write code, start simple. Don't try to learn some framework right from the beginning. You start with you got to learn to walk before you run, right? So if you want to learn React, for example, you got to learn JS and HTML and CSS and the web first, right? Big mistake people make is they try to jump ahead. They figure to save time. Stop spamming chat. Yeah, my eyes just ignore repeated questions over and over again. You know what that is? That's that droplet sound. That's just the software. Every time somebody posts a question, it's like boop boop. That's the sound. Sorry about that. I keep forgetting. Yes, this guy Andreas, he knows what he's talking about. Which language should I first start with? I would say probably Python. Just setting up the Java environment, the class path and everything is a pain. Basics, fundamentals. Okay, what we got here? Hey, Stefan, I've been learning Python Django as my stack as a self-taught full stack dev. Do you think I should get highly proficient before learning another stack? Well, it depends. It depends on, are you able to, with your Python Django skill, are you able to now write commercial apps? Can you get it done? And do you feel comfortable building apps? If so, then you might want to learn another framework just to get a different perspective. Because let's say you're doing Python Django now, maybe learn Node.js and Express, or maybe PHP Laravel. And then you're going to be able to compare and contrast the two frameworks and the languages, and it will just make you better at both. Assuming, though, you're comfortable writing your Python Django. How to get ideas for projects to practice. As I said, once you have your fundamentals, do one or two tutorials that you see online that are connected to your fundamentals. It means if you're doing web, you do that. And then from there, I would just do a couple of jobs for clients. Trust me, that's how you're going to learn 10 times faster doing real world work. You don't want to be a forever student caught in tutorial hell trying to do tutorials and tutorials and tutorials. I want you to get out there and do the real thing because you're going to learn much quicker. It's like fighting. Best way to learn how to fight is you get into a fight. You often say we need to learn fundamentals first. What do you generally treat as fundamentals? You know what? I think I have to do a video on the fundamentals, just an overview. Although to go through my YouTube collection, I got well over 1,000 videos, and I think I've covered a bunch of that stuff. But I'm going to have to come up with a collection of FAQ videos to cover some of these common questions. Good question, though. Good question. Thoughts on shifting focus from mobile app dev such as Flutter or focusing more on AWS given the state of the world. Thoughts on shifting focus from mobile app dev such as Flutter. Okay. I'm a big believer in sticking to code. Like, I think that infrastructures like AWS and so on, for people who don't know, AWS, Amazon Web Services, is complex now, and you got to know your stuff to do it, to work with it. But I think as competition increases with Microsoft Azure, Google, AWS, DigitalOcean, a smaller player, they're going to make the process of leveraging their advanced hosting toolkits, if you will, they're going to make it easier and easier and easier. So the need for experts in that space, I think, will diminish, but the need for developers and coders will always, well, for the next long time, it's going to be pretty strong. I hope that makes sense. Why do I believe this? This is a trend I have seen before. In the early days of web design development, you had to do a lot of stuff manually in terms of setting up your servers and so on. Like, I used to set up my own server. You should literally build the box, install the operating system, install the web server, configure my router, configure all this kind of, the firewall, install firewalls. I had to do all this. And now you just like, boom, it's all done. Let's see. Does anyone write web apps in PHP without using Laravel or similar? Yeah, there's a lot of legacy PHP out there. There's a lot of cart-based things out there, tons. That being said, if you're developing anything that has it's a little bit serious, I would be using a framework like Laravel or Cake or whatever happens to be the competition at this time. Hi, do I need to know command line? I'm fighting back a burp there. Do I need to know command line? You need to know a little bit for sure, especially if you're working with a team of developers. You're working at a team of developers, you're going to be getting into DevOps, which is right now you need command line skills for sure. You're working alone, not so much, maybe basic stuff. I remember you said once that certifications like paddings are like paddings on your resume. Would you say some certification from Google but free have more weight than others? Certifications that are attached to a big name will have some weight. There's no question about it. I think a resume is stronger than certifications, but certifications have some weight. Bigger the name, the better, but they're kind of like the seeds of your reputation building. And in full disclosure, StudioWeb provides certifications to schools for many years now, and we're about to release them to the general public. But now you know my feelings about that. Hello, greetings to you, sir. Greetings, Sai Gamery 7988. What would be the best platform to build Python programming skill? Doesn't matter. Choose whatever one you prefer. Can you record a car cam with some Montreal downtown empty streets next time when you're outside? Yeah, for sure. I actually put out some stuff recently. I got some stuff in archive recorded a few days ago. That's not a problem. PHP is still killing it in silence. Yeah, but that's the thing about PHP. If you look at the statistic, it's like PHP is like the pornography of the coding world. You know what I mean? Nobody watches it, but it's the most popular site in the world. PHP is so widely used. I think like 30 or 40% of the world's websites are powered with PHP. A lot of that's because of WordPress, but there comes a point in time where technology becomes so entrenched in the ecosystem that it's very difficult for it to be displaced. You know what I mean? You are welcome. All right, Yusuf, Siam, excuse me. First, hello from Egypt. What do you think of a quota of PHP in the freelancing market in percentage? What do you mean the quota? Do I think there is a limit the amount of PHP coders? I don't think so. I think there's a big demand. Do you know any French? Salazar Barnes, bien sûr, je parle français, mais c'est pas souvent que je parle français parce que je fais plutôt de mon business aux États-Unis. Mais je parle français québécois. C'est pas la même chose que le français de France. I was just speaking in Chinese there. No, I was speaking in French. Hi, Stef. Could you please make Django tutorial? I was thinking about that, but there's lots of little good tutorials out there on Django, I would imagine. I'm not keen on doing that. It's just time. I won't be doing any new tutorials, at least for another few months, because I'm moving in about a month, and that's a huge job, as you know. What should I do after I've read a book about programming language? Take a course? Write code. That's what I would do. Do you need a lot of resources for web app which imports products to different marketplace websites with their API? Do you need a lot of resources for a web app which imports products to different marketplace webs with their API? Probably not. Because when you're sharing, that's called app interoperability. That's sharing information from app A to app B. And typically that's done with JSON objects today, which are just JavaScript objects, which is just a bunch of text and little files. So it speeds across the web like this. Bing, bing, bing. It's, especially in today, when you look at the fact that we live in a streaming video, like you're watching HD video with me, right? Yeah, it's not a big deal. Stop wiggling. Am I vibrating? My body vibrating? Yes, it's my leg. Uh, was strange when advertising in English for Canada and women from Montreal left a bad review on my e-commerce because the ad, it was in English. What? Was strange when I was advertising English in Canada and a woman from Montreal left a bad review for my on my e-commerce because the ad was in English. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The reality of the interwebs is that you're never going to please everybody. Like I had a guy comment earlier, I'm spamming and Stef is spamming. Then I'll have other people say, Stef, do you have a course? So yeah, in Canada, in Montreal specifically, we have this French English thing going on where some French Canadians are sensitive about English in Quebec. Um, it's a long political thing, you know. Yeah, there's politics about that. Language is politics in Quebec, although it's really died down in recent years, thank God. I think that in terms of languages, it's better if you learn multiple spoken languages and multiple coding languages. Why? Because it opens up your mind. For example, the French language expresses ideas that you don't see expressed in English, or at least not easily in English. So in fact, when you learn a new human language, you're actually going to learn to see the world in a different way because of the way the language is structured. It's kind of fascinating. Much in the same way, when you go from learning programming a programming language like A, which Python, and then you go to Java, and you're going to see a whole different ways to express similar ideas. And it will just make you better at programming in general. Just like learning multiple human languages will make you a better speaker, and it will help you understand people a little bit better. Like it would be cool for me to learn Arabic, I think, because it's very different, I would imagine, from the Latin-based languages that I'm trained in. I know two. And I think it would be kind of cool to learn that. Also to learn Mandarin, perhaps, or maybe learn the Japanese language. It would help me think about life in a different way. What's your relationship status, if you don't mind the question? Oh, this is coding talk only. When can we watch your live streams? Well, you're watching it now. I'm trying to do them at 2 o'clock New York time on a regular basis. We'll see how that goes. But I think that's the best time. It's a compromise between what people in Europe and Africa and Asia, so they don't have to stay up to 2 in the morning to watch me, and people in North America. I'm trying to find that compromise for everybody. I like DDNYC. Are you from New York City? As someone who speaks 5 languages, impressive. I agree. Yeah. See, that's one of the things. My grandfather, he spoke 5 languages or 6 languages. And I wish he would have taught us more because it would have been better. He spoke all kinds. Let's see what we got here. Poria. Hi, Steph. Do you think learning more than one web framework as a server-side developer is helpful? One at a time. Pick one, your one of choice, depending on your language, and then go from there. But once you're comfortable with that one framework and you have some extra time, then I would do that. Oh, this is an interesting question. I like this. Why do I like Java but dislike JavaScript? Because Java is more consistent. It's better structured, I find. It is very explicit, so it's very clear when you're writing Java code what it is you're writing, where in JavaScript there's a lot of implicit, there's implicity, I don't know if that's the right word. There are a lot of JavaScript code rather, is implicit. So you have to understand the context. It's really strange, and it's a weakness in the language, in my opinion, where sometimes a particular operator in JavaScript will have a certain meaning or a certain effect, whereas in Java, it's very consistent. That is why. And in some ways, even though Java is more complex in many regards because it's a strongly typed language, in some ways it's easier to learn because it's so explicit, it's so in your face. That is, I think, why you feel that way. That's my guess. It's now 2 p.m. in Vietnam. Really? Really? I'm surprised. Okay. Okay, I'll put this in. John Wayne. Any Stefan character action from waiting to happen? I don't know. Let's see. Bonjour de Montréal. Bonjour, bonjour, bonjour. Quelle partie de Montréal est-ce que tu restes? Where do you live? My French isn't perfect, by the way. I don't practice enough. I forget words. And sometimes I use something called franglais, where I start speaking part French and English. When you speak franglais, that really gets the Quebecers irate. So sometimes I do en France. I do it in reverse that makes them happy. Anyway, anybody from Montreal understands what I'm talking about. Golang icon is really nice looking. Is that enough reason to learn the language? Of course, the first thing I look at when I'm looking at any technology is the logo. If the logo and the icon are cool, that to me is a big yes. If the logo looks like crap, then it's a big no. I think that's why PHP is so unpopular. It's got an elephant for a logo, right? I'm joking, by the way. It's not 2 p.m. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's not 2 p.m. It's like the opposite. It must be like 1 a.m. or something. No, more than that. What was it 4 or 5 a.m., something like that? Okay. Okay, you just answered my question. Okay, good. Right. Let's see. Zolt says, hi, I just wanted to thank you for all the content and advice. It's been 6 months since starting working on self-taught route, and you helped me overcome some mind roadblocks. Fantastic. I'm glad I can help. That's why I'm here. So I'm here. It's one of the things I like hearing back from people I help. What do you think about the old days when Flash was the thing and there were no mobiles? What do you think of the old days when, well, what do I think? Well, it was big. It was huge. Flash was huge. And then in 2011 or whatever it was, 10, when Steve Jobs killed it off, I was surprised, but I wasn't surprised. I was surprised, but I wasn't surprised at the same time. Flash had its problems. And according to the biography, the post-mortem biography, Steve Jobs' biography, Jobs admitted that he decided to not let Flash work on iPhone, iOS, because he wanted to get back at Adobe, because Adobe had pissed off Steve Jobs back in the day. Yeah, it's weird. But I've seen, like, if people don't know, Flash was huge back in the day. It's unbelievable how big Flash was. And I actually first was introduced to Flash before Adobe bought it and before Macromedia bought it. And it was called Future Splash. And it was a way to create animations on the web. I got that. My brother actually bought it when it came out. Python versus Node.js as a backend language. You know, I think if you're doing high bandwidth stuff, I would go with Node. I'd probably go Python Django, because I think there's going to be, I've heard recently that Python Django is rising in terms of server-side programming. And I think because Python is so popular in other types of programming that it kind of makes sense it's going to bleed over, spill into the web space if I had to choose. But again, it's very project specific. It depends on what you do. I think Node runs much, much faster. Do you have experience in penetrated testing and web security? Not in terms of like actively doing it, but having to deal with it. When I ran my own servers, you know, most of the time it was shutting down all your ports, not using passwords to secure your server, using keys, making sure you hit the database in your web apps a minimal amount of times, and you scrub, of course, all input that way. And I would obfuscate my my database calls. One of the things I had engineered into my web framework when I developed it in nice Java, it was a Pojo-based, plain old Java Beans-based, servlet JSP-based web framework. I had an obfuscated database layer that I had created, so it was like a branching to get to my database calls. So my own personal stuff had never been hacked in those days because it was all custom, and it was very weird. So one of the ways that people are able to hack effectively is through looking at common patterns of development. So I hope that makes any sense. Okay, thoughts on overcoming boredom during lockdown and getting out of code burnout. Exercise, eat well, drink lots of water. That's why I do my Instagram vlogs that I drive around. I can't wait when it gets sunny. I pull down the convertible top. That's one of my joys in life, driving around with the convertible down, having a nice coffee, especially in the spring and the fall. You get cool air, hot sun in a convertible with a hot coffee. It is amazing. I love Ruby. Is there any hope for me? Why are you on this channel? I'm only kidding. No, there's plenty of hope for you. It's like there's a lot of jobs in Ruby, you know. There's a lot of legacy code in Ruby. I don't think you're going to have any trouble with Ruby. I just do my Ruby jokes because it's one of the things that I do here. But I would assume that Flash had some serious flaws, otherwise Steve Jobs wouldn't have been able to kill it. You're right. It did have some serious security issues. It was slow and heavy. And even Adobe eventually admitted that when they stopped developing. After Steve Jobs killed it for iOS, eventually Adobe conceded and killed it on mobile altogether on Android. Ironically now, and the reason it was security issues, number one. Number two was slow. And they didn't optimize speed. Ironically, now, you know, the hardware on these mobile devices are like super powerful. They could easily, in terms of, they could easily run the Flash apps now. But you know, anyway, that's ancient history, my friends. Overcoming lockdown and boredom. Watch Stef live streams and vids. All right, this guy, this Fizz 007, he knows what he's talking about, right? Which code editor would you recommend me as a beginner? Oh, that's a good question. I want to have the community chime in. Which code editor would you recommend for a beginner? So not necessarily the most powerful, but the easiest to approach. Depends on what language, right? We'll say Python. Would it be PyCharm, Visual Studio Code? You know, even though I love JetBrains, my instinct would be to say use Visual Studio Code because you could stay within the same app and go from Python to C# or JavaScript. In the comments, recommend your favorite code editor for beginner to use. The best IDE you have ever used. Well, I have to say from memory, and it has to do the best one that hit me at the time, and I'm not saying it's the best today, was IntelliJ, which is same people make PyCharm. IntelliJ for Java, that was like a game changer for me at the time. But in terms of code editor and code completion and all those tools, refactoring, in terms of best IDE is Visual Studio. Microsoft, they've always been the king at that. Yeah, so see, it seems to be consensus that VS Code, the Microsoft is probably the better one to go with. So that would be my recommendation. And I think that's free, right? VS Code, I think is free. But PyCharm, fantastic. You can't take away from PyCharm, you know. Not Vim, joking. VS Code, yeah, I wouldn't use Vim. Okay. Brackets, that's another one, yeah. Adobe, right? Adobe's bracket. Adobe Brackets has an easy UI for beginners. It's an Adobe broad. Text document. No. I used to actually, for like an idiot, I wrote my Java code commercially for a few years, 2 to 3 years, I forget now, with just a text edit, because I was too much of a purist. And then I finally said, okay, I'll learn an idea. I'll learn a code editor. And I became so much more productive, you know, with all the tools that code editors provide. So yeah. So which code editor would you recommend? Hey, okay, I answered that one already. Ooh, your most successful project. That's very hard to say. It's very hard to say. I don't know. Is it better to do native mobile app development when starting out instead of Flutter, etc.? You know what? I would let the market dictate that for you. Look at the job potentials, look where you want to work, and then choose whatever it is you want to do. That's what I would suggest. Stefan, which brand of development to pursue without formal education if web development is not appealing to a programmer? That's interesting. I guess, I would guess I would go mobile development, maybe native mobile iOS or something. That's an interesting question. If you don't want to do web. Yeah, NetBeans. I remember NetBeans. I'm sure it's still around, but how many people use that? The course I'm taking online is now going to Bootstrap, but it's like cheating. Should I skip it? No. Learn Bootstrap because you're probably going to run into it. And Bootstrap is pretty big, but everybody uses just the grid, really. So just learn your grid and you'll be good. Does anyone know a Sublime theme to get old school style colors or attributes? I'm using Celeste now. I don't know. So if anybody has the answer that, if you will. You skip question based on what? My question is not getting any attention, I guess. It's just they scroll by pretty quickly. All those drops you're hearing, doop, doop, doop. That's all the questions coming in, right? It's all the comments, so if you want to hear it, right? So, okay, now nobody's questioning. There you go. Are you a gamer? A little bit, not nearly as much as I used to be. Yeah. Stefan, what was your BJJ belt? None. I never did BJJ. I did several other styles, including boxing, wrestling, judo. I do have a black belt in a traditional martial art, but it was pretty hardcore because our teacher was an enforcer for the mob. He eventually got assassinated, in fact. So it was very hardcore teaching. And so I got a black belt there, and I did a bunch of other stuff. Are you a skater? Looking at your shirt. No, I just bought that shirt because I kind of like the symbol. I didn't even know it was a skater shirt. You just told me. Thanks for letting me know. Your thoughts on Tailwind CSS and Function CSS in general. Functional CSS. I have no comment on it. I don't know what Tailwind is. I would have to check that out. Stefan Mishak, thank you for how to pick your color for your web. You helped me. I'm glad I could help. Fantastic. See all that sound? Boop, boop, boop. That's the questions coming in, the comments coming in. So let me shut that down so you don't hear it anymore. Best advices for newbies, others than typical advices. Laugh out loud. I don't know. My typical advice is everybody else's typical advices. I think I've covered my typical advices. Consistency is king. Stick to your fundamentals. Get to writing real code as quickly as possible. And therein lies the secret. All right. I think we're going to end it here. Whoa, it's over an hour, almost 70 minutes. I had a couple of coffees, so I had energy today. And I will leave it at that, guys. So we're at 165, 85 thumbs up. We'll see. Can you give me 100 thumbs up? Give me some thumbs up. And yeah, that's about it. So I'll see you in the next feed, probably tomorrow at 2 p.m. New York City time. And we shall talk soon.